Well, CBN chief political analyst David Brody is joining us now. So, David, it looks like what was expected to be a wave didn't happen at all. So Republicans had the issue of the economy on their side, but the predictions didn't pan out. So what happened?
Well, there was a lot of different things that happened, Gordon. Let's start with this. The Democrats have made a cottage industry of the early vote, and they have also made a cottage industry of the mail-in voting. They do it well. They know how to get out the vote early, and Republicans have always been kind of that election day. You know, it's come on, it's Tuesday, get out and vote. Not working for them. And I think we're seeing some of that. Also, money was a big factor as well. But what's really interesting here, Gordon, that ultimately, look, 75% in the exit polls, 75% of folks thought the country was going in the wrong direction. And we see these results. I do want to point out something very interesting, and we've got the map behind me. I want to go to New York here. In New York, in the governor's race, take a look at this. This is Kathy Hochul. She won. The Democrat. The margin ultimately ended up being about 5 percentage points, not 6. She won by 5. Andrew Cuomo, 4 years ago, won New York by 30 percentage points, roughly 30. So it's down to 5. The point is that what I saw throughout the evening is that even though Democrats may have held onto their seats, the vote totals are down substantially. So we'll see. And then we get into the House and the Senate, and, well, we have a lot to talk about there as well.
Well, one interpretation of the events is this was the night of the incumbent, that when you look at the wins on either the Republican or the Democrat side, it seems to be overwhelmingly in favor of incumbent politicians. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, I think to a degree. I also think what really matters here is the type of candidate. Look at Ron DeSantis, for example, a resounding victory in Florida. He won by, plus 20 or so over Charlie Crist, a very well-known person, in the state. And then you had, that's interesting because that was Florida. And then you had Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. And what happened here? And this is the worst right here at the map. This is the worst part of blue for the for the Republicans last night, that it went to John Fetterman. Dr. Oz was not a good candidate. And that's the difference between Ron DeSantis and Dr. Oz. And don't take my word for it. I'm talking to at least 3 GOP sources this morning said Dr. Oz was not a good candidate. You know, he's a guy that, in essence, did live in Bergen County, New Jersey. A lot of people saw him as a carpetbagger. He wasn't exactly a strong candidate like a Ron DeSantis in Florida. So the question is, what's the template going forward for the Republicans? Is it the Ron DeSantis strong, bold type that did very well in Florida, freedom in Florida, or is it the Dr. Oz kind of centrist candidate, which did not do well in Pennsylvania? You wonder if they put up a bolder candidate in Pennsylvania with the right money and the right backing and the right message, if that would have resonated. Well,
how much of this is also a referendum on Trump? Because Trump backed Oz. At the last minute, to everyone's amazement, he seemed to be taking shots at DeSantis. How much of this is based on it suddenly became a Trump versus Biden race all over again? And is that a factor here?
I think there is a Trump factor here. You're going to hear a lot on the so-called mainstream media outlets that it was a bad night for Trump. Look, if you look at the endorsement record up and down the board for Trump, I mean, it's no contest. He won like 90% of the races or so that the folks that he endorsed. But some big ones he did lose, like Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, also up in New Hampshire, the Senate race there. I can put that one up there on the screen. Maggie Hassan, the Democrat, beat Don Bolduc, someone that Donald Trump did endorse. He had questioned the results of the 2020 election. Then he dialed that back, but it was a little bit too little too late. So there is some validity to that. But it's going to be interesting to watch. Look, this is Donald Trump's party, whether or not the Republicans that don't like that like it or not. And that's kind of where that is. And no one's going to stop that. And Trump's not going to have anybody stop him.
Well, what happened to the prediction on the Hispanic vote, that there was going to be a historic shift to the Republicans with the Hispanic vote? It didn't seem to pan out.
Well, it didn't pan out fully. And I'll give you an example. Let's go to Texas. And if you look at this race here, this is the Latina woman, Monica de la Cruz, who actually won that district down in that Rio Grande Valley area of South Texas. She beat the Democrat. That is a pickup for Republicans. But then if you go right next door in her district, the 28th district, Cassie Garcia losing to the Democrat there. And then also another Latina woman, Mayra Flores, also losing. The Republicans were hoping to pick up at least two of those three seats with the Latina women down there in the Rio Grande Valley didn't materialize. I think what's interesting, if I could just point out New York real quick, this is fascinating to me. And let me just go to New York 17. Big Democrat went down last night, and this is important. Sean Maloney, who is the head of the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, he went down in New York. And if I can go back to the Senate map, right here in New York, in this Westchester County, right north of New York City, where crime has been an issue, the Democrats are losing. And not all of them have been called, but he's going to lose. But a couple of other Democrat seats will be lost in that New York, Rockland, Hudson Valley area near Poughkeepsie. That's important because as we go forward, control of the House, it looks like will go into Republican hands eventually because those seats in New York will flip to red, not blue. So it's actually New York State that will most likely give the Republicans a victory in the House. And it's real interesting because everybody's saying it wasn't a red wave, and that is 100% true. It was a ripple. Having said that, let's remember, you've got the House that could definitely flip. And also, you have a Senate here, and we haven't talked about the makeup of the Senate, but there is a path to flip the Senate as well, because remember, the Republicans are at 48 seats right now. If they get Wisconsin, that has not officially been called by the Associated Press, that would make it 49. Georgia, we'll see about that. That's a possible runoff. But either way, Arizona and Nevada, both Democrats' seats, the Republicans could flip one of those. Those still haven't been called. So there's a way for the Republicans to flip the Senate, flip the House, and even though it's not a red wave, they would still be in command of both chambers. It'll be interesting the next week or so.
Well, there's going to be a lot of analysis on both parties as to what just happened. I think in the White House, they're celebrating because they were anticipating historic losses, and that didn't happen. So what do you think will be the long-term impact of this race going forward to 2024?
Well, I think it's really important that Democrats take a step back here for a second. They're going to think, at least in the short term, that they, in a way, kind of did well last night. And to a degree, that is definitely true. We live in a polarized environment, and so you're not going to see a shellacking like you saw in 2010 because our country is so much different than it even was back then, believe it or not. But the important thing to remember for Democrats is that while it's a short-term victory for them tonight, the problem is, as I said earlier, those races that they are winning, they're winning by 10, 20, 30,000 votes less. Let me just give you one example, and then I'll just wrap it up. But in Georgia, District 2, I want you to look at this race here. Sanford Bishop, who is the long-term Democrat senator down there in Georgia. This is a Democrat district that has been in Democrats' hands since 1875. He was in a tough battle last night. He eventually won by about 10 percentage points. He only won by about 25,000 votes. And you say, well, that sounds pretty good. He actually won 2 years ago by about 55,000 votes. So he's lost 30,000 votes in a Democrat district. If you're a Democrat today, you realize you may be publicly saying, hey, it was a pretty good night for us, but deep down, you know what's really going on. It might not have been a Mack truck necessarily that hit last night. The Republican Mack truck never happened, but that family van kind of going down the freeway, going the speed limit at 55, it's heading towards the Democrats. They're losing votes in many of these districts. All
right, well, the Biden White House is, they're already signaling he's in it again, he's going to run again. All eyes now are on Mar-a-Lago, upcoming announcement. What's your prediction? Do you think Trump is going to say, yes, I'll run again, or is he going to say, I'm over?
No, I think he's going to say 100% he is in. As a matter of fact, if I could add 3 zeros to 100%, I don't know what that is. I'm not great at math, but I'll figure it out. I have to move the comma. But yes, he will definitely run on Tuesday, November 15th. That's the day he's set to, quote, announce. He's going to do it. There's no doubt about it. And then beyond that, you've got Joe Biden. I think the question really is more for Democrats. What are they going to do with Joe Biden? Is he going to run again? The problem is even the Democrats are not too fond of Kamala Harris, so that doesn't seem very tenable. And then Gavin Newsom out in California is waiting in the wings. But that's a whole nother storyline, I guess, for a whole nother day.
Okay. The day after election, the new campaign
Here we go.
Begins again. Well, David, thanks for your insight.
You bet.